I want to start with a question, and I need you to answer it not with the version of yourself that is composed and self-aware and comfortable being observed. I need you to answer it with the version of yourself that exists in the quiet moments, the honest moments, the 3 a.m, moments when the noise of the day has finally gone still and something real and unfiltered rises to the surface of your awareness before you can manage it back, down into the comfortable silence where you usually keep it. The question is this: what is actually holding you back? Not the answer you give to other people when they ask, not the polished explanation that references timing or circumstances or resources, or the particular combination of external factors that have made your specific situation more complicated than most. Not the version that is technically true but conveniently incomplete. The real answer, the one that lives beneath every explanation you have ever offered. The one that you circle around in your most honest moments but rarely land on directly, because landing on it requires a level of personal accountability that is genuinely uncomfortable to hold. Because I have had this conversation with enough people, and I have sat with this question honestly enough in my own life to know something with complete certainty. The thing that is holding most people back is almost never what they think it is. It is almost never the circumstance they are pointing to, almost never the resource they are waiting for, almost never the timing they are hoping will improve, or the opportunity they are waiting to arrive, or the person they are waiting to change, or leave, or finally give them the permission they have been seeking. The thing that is holding most people back is invisible, not because it does not exist, but because it exists in the one place that is hardest to examine clearly, the one place where the most powerful forces in your life have always operated, the one place where every external obstacle gets either amplified into a permanent wall or reduced to a temporary inconvenience, depending entirely on what lives there
inside you.
The real thing holding you back is not a circumstance. It is not a person. It is not a lack of resources or a shortage of time or an absence of opportunity. It is a collection of invisible agreements, inherited stories, avoided conversations, and unconscious limitations that have been quietly running your life from the background for longer than you have probably been willing to look. And today, for the first time with complete honesty, we are going to look. Let me start with something that I believe is one of the most important things you will ever understand about the life you are living and the life you are not living yet, because there is a gap between those two things. You feel it. You have always felt it. That quiet, persistent sense that something more is available to you, that the version of your life you are currently experiencing is not the complete version, that somewhere between who you are today and who you are capable of becoming, there is a distance that should not be as wide as it is, and you have probably spent a significant amount of time looking for the thing that is creating that distance, looking at your circumstances, your past, your resources, the people around you, the opportunities that did or did not arrive, trying to identify the external force that has been standing between you and the life you know you are meant to live. But what if the thing holding you back is not something you can see from the outside? What if it is not a wall you can point to, or a door you can find, or an obstacle you can physically move out of the way? What if the most powerful thing holding you back in your life right now is something completely invisible to the naked eye, but felt in every single decision you make, every risk you consider, every version of yourself you allow to exist in the world? What if it is a fence, an invisible fence, built not from circumstances but from conclusions? Conclusions you reached a long time ago about who you are and what you are capable of and where your limits lie. Conclusions that were formed in moments of pain or failure or rejection or disappointment, and then quietly solidified over time into something that functions exactly like a physical barrier, even though it exists entirely inside you. Here is how the invisible fence gets built. Something happens. You try something and it does not work. You reach for something and it does not come. You put yourself out there in some significant way, and the result is painful enough that some part of you registers a very specific lesson, not always a conscious lesson, not always something you could articulate clearly if someone asked you to, but a felt lesson, a lesson that lives in the body more than in the mind, a lesson that says that direction is dangerous, That territory is not for you. That version of yourself is not safe to be. And from that moment forward, you stop walking toward that fence. Not because someone is forcing you to stop. Not because the fence is actually electrified anymore. But because the memory of the shock was enough. Because the anticipation of the pain became more powerful than the actual pain ever was. And over time the fence becomes so familiar, so deeply integrated into your sense of what is possible for you, that you stop even noticing it is there. You simply route your life around it automatically. We have talked about the invisible fence and how the most powerful boundaries in your life are not external walls but internal conclusions, built from old pain that stopped being accurate a long time ago. And now I want to go one layer deeper, because the invisible fence has a foundation. It does not float in empty space. It is anchored into something so fundamental, so completely woven into the fabric of how you experience yourself and the world around you, that most people never think to examine it, because it does not feel like something separate from them. It feels like them. I am talking about your identity. Not your identity in the surface sense. Not your name or your nationality or your profession or the roles you play in the lives of the people around you. I'm talking about the deep identity, the core narrative, the story you carry about who you fundamentally are, the collection of beliefs, labels, and self-definitions that operate beneath every conscious thought you have and silently determine the ceiling of everything you allow yourself to achieve, experience, and become. Because here is something that the most successful people in the world understand, that most people never figure out. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your identity. Your goals describe where you want to go. Your identity determines how far you actually get. And no matter how clear your vision is, no matter how strong your desire, no matter how detailed your plan, if the identity you are carrying into that vision is incompatible with the person who achieves it, your own psychology will find a way to return you to the level that feels consistent with who you believe yourself to be. Think about every time you have gotten close to a significant breakthrough and then watched it slip away in a way that seemed almost inexplicable. Every time success felt almost within reach and then something happened. A decision you made, a behavior that emerged, a self-sabotage so perfectly timed that it almost felt deliberate, that pulled you back to familiar territory. That was not bad luck. That was not the universe working against you. That was your identity doing exactly what it was designed to do, protecting the consistency of the story you have been telling about yourself. Because the human mind craves consistency above almost everything else. And when your external results begin to exceed what your internal identity believes you deserve, the mind will work with extraordinary creativity to restore the balance. And here is what makes this so completely invisible to most people. The identity story does not announce itself as a limitation. It announces itself as the truth. When you tell yourself you are not the kind of person who succeeds, at that level it does not feel like a limiting belief. It feels like an accurate self-assessment. We have talked about the invisible fence and how the boundaries holding you back were never built by the world but by conclusions you reached in moments of old pain. We have talked about identity and how the story you carry about who you are has always been a more powerful ceiling than any circumstance you have ever faced. And now I want to talk about something that lives directly beneath that identity, something that feeds it and sustains it and makes it feel more permanent and more justified than it actually is. Something so normalized in most people's lives that it has become completely invisible, not because it is subtle, but because it has been present for so long that it no longer registers as something that could be different. I want to talk about your standards, and specifically I want to talk about the standards you have been accepting without ever consciously choosing them. Because here is something that most people fundamentally misunderstand about standards. They think of standards as something you set, something you consciously decide and deliberately maintain, and sometimes that is true. But far more often the standards that are actually running your life are not the ones you set. They are the ones you absorbed from your environment, from the people around you, from the household you grew up in, from the community that shaped your earliest understanding of what was normal and what was possible and what someone like you could reasonably expect from life. And those absorbed Standards became your baseline, the floor of what you accept for yourself, the minimum threshold below which things feel genuinely unacceptable, and above which everything feels like bonus territory you were not necessarily entitled to. And the devastating thing about absorbed standards is that they do not feel low. They feel real. They feel accurate. They feel like the natural and appropriate level for someone with your history and your background and your particular combination of strengths and limitations. Think about the areas of your life where you have been accepting less than you know you deserve. Not dramatically less, not in ways that are obviously painful or clearly unjust, but quietly less. The relationship dynamic you have been tolerating because it is familiar even though it is not fulfilling. The professional situation you have been accepting because it is safe even though it is not aligned with what you are genuinely capable of. The standard of health or energy or joy or connection that you have been living below, not because you cannot do better, but because better stopped feeling like something you were automatically entitled to somewhere along the way. And here is what makes low standards so extraordinarily dangerous. They compound. Every day you accept a standard below your actual capability. That standard becomes slightly more normal, slightly more permanent, slightly more like just the way things are rather than a choice that could be made differently. We have talked about the invisible fence built from old conclusions that stopped being accurate long ago. We have talked about the identity story that functions as the most powerful ceiling in your entire life. We have talked about the standards you have been accepting without ever consciously choosing them and how they quietly determine the floor of everything you build. And now I want to talk about something that is simultaneously one of the most practical and one of the most profound things holding you back. Something that does not live in the abstract territory of mindset or belief or psychology, but in the very specific, very concrete, very identifiable space of your daily interactions with the people and situations in your life. I want to talk about the conversations you are not having. And I want you to think about this honestly before I go any further, because every single person listening to this speech right now has at least one conversation that has been waiting to be had for longer than it should have been. One truth that has been waiting to be spoken. One honest exchange that has been carefully and consistently avoided because the anticipation of having it feels more uncomfortable than the ongoing cost of not having it. One relationship, one situation, one area of your life where something important remains unspoken, and that unspoken thing is not neutral. It is not simply waiting patiently in the background, causing no harm until you are finally ready to address it. It is actively, quietly, and relentlessly costing you something every single day that it remains unsaid. Because here's what unspoken truths do inside a life. They do not disappear. They do not resolve themselves through time or through the patient hope that things will somehow improve without the direct, honest conversation that improvement actually requires. Unspoken truths transform. They transform from simple, honest communications into walls, into distance, into resentment, into the specific and suffocating dynamic of two people or a person in their own life, existing in the same space while something real and important sits between them, completely unacknowledged, growing heavier and more complex with every day that passes without it being addressed. Think about the conversation you have been avoiding. And I want you to think about what it has already cost you, not what having it might cost you in the future. What not having it has already cost you in the past. How much energy have you spent managing the situation around the unspoken thing, rather than simply addressing the thing itself? How many decisions have been made from a place of incompleteness because the honest conversation that would have provided the clarity and the foundation for a better decision was never had? How many versions of a relationship or an opportunity or a situation remained smaller and less alive than they could have been simply because one honest. We have talked about the invisible fence, built from conclusions that lost their accuracy long ago. We have talked about the identity story, functioning as the most powerful ceiling in your life. We have talked about the standards you inherited without choosing and the conversations you have been avoiding and the doors they have been locking from the inside. And now, I want to talk about something that sits beneath every single one of those things. Something so fundamental to the way you are making decisions right now that without addressing it directly, everything else we have discussed will only produce temporary change rather than permanent transformation. I want to talk about where you are living from. Not physically, not geographically, but internally. The place inside you from which every decision, every expectation, every assessment of what is possible for your life is being made. Because there are two fundamentally different places a human being can live from when they are navigating their life. And the difference between them is not subtle. It is not a minor variation in perspective or a slight adjustment in attitude. It is the difference between a life that keeps contracting and a life that keeps expanding, between a future that looks like a slightly improved version of your past and a future that looks like something genuinely and completely new. Most people are living from their past, and I want you to understand exactly what that means. Living from your past means that every decision you make today is being filtered through the evidence of everything that has already happened to you. Every opportunity is being evaluated through the lens of every previous attempt that did not work out. Every relationship is being approached through the accumulated weight of every previous relationship that hurt you. Every new beginning is being assessed through the memory of every previous beginning that did not reach the destination you hoped for. Your past becomes the primary source of information about what your future is allowed to contain. And since your past contains failure and disappointment and limitation and pain, as every honest human life does, your future gets quietly but consistently constrained by evidence that was never meant to be permanent. Think about a specific area of your life where you have been holding back, where you have been cautious in a way that goes beyond genuine wisdom into something closer to preemptive self-protection. And ask yourself honestly, where is that caution coming from? Is it coming from a clear-eyed assessment of the present reality, or is it coming from the memory of a past experience that taught you a lesson so convincingly that you have been applying that lesson to every subsequent situation, regardless of whether the situations are actually comparable? Because the past is an extraordinary teacher. It genuinely is. The experiences you have lived through. We have walked through every layer of what has been holding you back in this speech. We have named the invisible fence built from old conclusions that lost their accuracy long ago. We have exposed the identity story, functioning as the most powerful ceiling in your entire life. We have talked about the standards you inherited without choosing and how they quietly became the floor of everything you built. We have talked about the conversations you have been avoiding and the doors they have been locking from the inside. We have talked about living from your past instead of your potential and how that single shift in orientation changes the entire trajectory of everything that comes next. And now we have arrived at the final point, the one that completes everything, the one that takes every insight from this speech and focuses it into the single most important truth you can carry forward. From this moment, the battle has never been out there. And I want you to sit with that for a moment before I explain it, because most people spend the majority of their lives operating from the assumption that the primary obstacles between them and the life they want are external. The circumstances that are not cooperating, the people who are not supportive, the timing that is not right, the resources that are not available, the opportunities that have not arrived. And so they fight, they strategize against the circumstances. They defend themselves against the unsupportive people. They wait for the timing to improve and the resources to appear and the opportunities to finally align. And they wonder why, despite all of that fighting and all of that waiting and all of that strategic navigation of the external landscape, the life they want remains just beyond reach. But here's the truth that changes everything. Every external obstacle you have ever faced has had a partner, a silent, internal partner that made the external obstacle more powerful than it needed to be. The circumstance was real, but your belief that the circumstance was permanent made it into a wall. The person was genuinely unsupportive, but your need for their approval gave them a power over your direction that they were never entitled to have. The timing was genuinely imperfect, but your conviction that perfect timing was a prerequisite For beginning turned an inconvenience into an indefinite delay. The external obstacle was never the whole story. Your agreement with it was always the other half. And that agreement, and that silent, unconscious, deeply habitual agreement with every limitation that presented itself, is the real enemy, not the circumstance, not the person, not the timing. The version of you that looked at all of those things and said, yes, you are right. I cannot move forward right now. The version of you that took every external obstacle as confirmation of the internal story, that used every difficult circumstance as evidence for that allowed every unsupportive. Because the greatest risk of a speech like this one is not that it fails to move you. The greatest risk is that it moves you temporarily and then the movement fades and the invisible fence reassembles and the identity story reclaims its authority and the avoided conversations remain unspoken, and the past resumes its position as the primary author of your future, and 7 days from now the life that briefly felt like it was about to change looks exactly as it did before you pressed play. I do not want that for you, and I do not believe you want that for yourself. So I want to leave you not with inspiration that fades, but with a clarity that stays. A clarity about the specific, identifiable, completely nameable thing that has been holding you back. Not in general, not abstractly, but specifically in your actual life. In the actual area where you feel the actual gap between who you are and who you know you are, capable of being. You know what it is. You have always known. It was there before this speech and it will be there after it. The invisible fence with its specific location in your specific life. The identity story with its specific language that you recognize immediately when it speaks. The standard you have been accepting that you know does not reflect what you actually deserve. The conversation with the specific person that has been waiting to be had. The decision that needs to be made from your potential rather than your past. The internal battle that has been disguising itself as an external one for as long as you can remember. You know exactly what it is, and now you know exactly what it has been costing you. Every day that it remains unchanged is another day of the same life. Another day of the gap. Another day of the quiet. Uncomfortable distance between the life you are living and the life you know is available to you on the other side of the work you have been postponing. So here is my final word to you, not as a speaker, but as someone who believes with complete conviction that you have everything you need right now to begin dismantling every single thing that has been holding you back. Name it, face it, challenge it, have the conversation, raise the standard, change the story, fight the right enemy, and do it today. Not because everything is ready, not because the fear is gone, not because the path is clear and the outcome is guaranteed, and every question has been answered, but because the life waiting on the other side of everything that has been holding you back is not a fantasy. It is not a distant possibility reserved for someone more prepared or more talented or more fortunate than you. It is yours. It has always been yours, and the only thing that has ever stood between you and it was never out there. It was always in here, and now that you can finally see it clearly, and the only question left is whether you are ready to do something about it,